Yeah, just I keep waiting for it to go away.
Yeah.
And about this time, I get real tired. But each day I feel a little better.
Oh, that's
So
good.
that's a good thing. Over the weekend, I got a lot of rest. Yeah, you're walking pretty well.
I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah. But, yeah, no, this weekend was nice turning point.
Hi, Jeannie.
I didn't think I was gonna get
Good.
through last week, but I did.
I think that's great.
I think you're moving really well.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
For an old lady, I'm recovering pretty fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, my brother still walks around with one.
Well, I started going to, I finished PT and then I started going to a personal trainer.
I wish he had done that. I tried to talk.
Yeah.
He didn't do it.
She works on aligning you, and that's, I've been out. My
Yeah.
poor legs don't know if they're straight or crooked anymore.
So who are you working with?
Amanda Strong, at Midcoast Strong.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I need your contact because I need to
Well, we
get
need,
us.
I don't know, are you on the bulletin board? No.
Yeah, I saw that email you sent.
She's, there was
She's
a lot of interest in, doing a class.
Oh,
I put out an inquiry, just, do strength training, and,
I would be interested.
yeah, so she may do one for just for women,
Yeah.
mostly.
Okay. Do you need?
Think, I should,
Oh.
there's,
Andy's not coming.
Andy's
No.
not.
Andy's not coming tonight. I
Well,
just
maybe
found
we're
out
in
an
chair.
hour ago, yeah. Hey, Matt.
Right up the corner, so if you want to come this way, I'll see you.
Yeah, we should stay in. Lois isn't, is Lois coming?
What's that?
Frank said,
Lois?
I don't think so. Frank, you said Lois is not coming?
And Andy's not coming.
Right.
We,
Jamie coming in now,
I haven't seen him for the last 3 or 4 meetings, right?
Right.
No,
or? Well, I haven't.
Yeah.
seen them, so
Yeah.
I can't say.
I think
Who
he's
knows?
still homeless.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't,
So do we have a quorum tonight? I guess we're not voting on anything anyway. This is just an informational meeting.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
workshop.
yeah, just a workshop. So we're not waiting for anybody else. Waiting another 3 minutes.
Is it the
Hello,
planning
Dick.
board? I don't know if anybody else on the planning board is coming.
Yeah, we'll wait 3 minutes.
So I gave your number to Deborah,
Uh-huh.
and she's passed it to her sisters.
Okay,
So
good.
they're really appreciative of all.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
How's she doing?
Same.
Saying,
Yeah, yeah.
she's a stubborn old
Are
woman.
you feeling better, Matt?
Just saying, yeah, I'm a lot better than I was, but I still have this residual chest stuff. that
A
I'm
lot of my family has just been down for weeks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel better today than I felt yesterday. The weekend was a great recovery. Last week was a I worked all week. I was just like, dead.
Well,
You work
we're
from
glad
home?
you got back here anyway.
Yeah.
Did you work from home or just,
Last week I went in for the most part, and then I went home and I laid down on the couch and I slept before dinner. Then I ate dinner and then I went back to sleep.
that's what you gotta do?
Yeah, you just gotta kind of ride it out. Nobody else in the office came down with it, so I'm pretty sure I got it coming back from DC. We went to DC for Thanksgiving to visit my daughter. I was teaching down there, and my other daughter came down with us. And I got onto the plane, and my wife and I were looking, we didn't have adjoining seats. And there was this guy that just looked awful. And I went, boy, you know, this is my luck. And sure enough, he sat right next to me, he pulled out a pillow, laid down like this, and just sat there and coughed and slept the whole train.
Right.
Right on you.
Yeah, this can't be good.
And it wasn't.
Yeah, well, I guess it's 4 o'clock. Let's get started. Welcome to the Land Use Committee meeting, December 16th, 2024. And Chairman Andy Young is sick this afternoon. I'm vice chairman, Richard McLaughlin. And I think we could start by just going around and introducing everybody, because I don't know some of the people here.
Terry Moulton,
Rick McLaughlin.
Jeannie Hollingsworth,
Earl Brown.
Andy Shapiro. Matthew Eddy.
oh, Nancy, Lisa, Bride, and Glenn.
Big Bud Lou.
Okay,
And I missed,
Dick from Mueller.
okay, okay.
okay. We're
And
here,
everyone- I'm
Oh,
sorry,
go on.
is Mr. Shapiro on the planning board too?
Yes.
Okay,
okay.
Yeah, he's an alternate to the planning board.
okay.
Yeah, I'm an alternate too, to this committee, so. But we're not voting tonight. I guess let's start, we won't vote on the minutes tonight because not everybody's here. But we did have minutes from our informational meeting December 2nd. And,
Yeah, just a summary.
yeah, I thought it was well done, Jeannie.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Very helpful.
Get some glasses. Does anybody have anything to add to it, take away from it, or comments on it?
No.
This lesson learned, you need to pass the mic around or have people to the mic, because it's hard to hear them.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
was hard to hear them.
Yeah, if anybody needs to go up to the mic there, we have a mic up there, you can go up and talk, and we might be able to hear you better up there. I guess I'm gonna begin by, just giving my rendition of why I think we took this approach. We didn't want a zone because we thought it was getting ahead of the comprehensive plan. And then there was some legal issues around trying to do away with box stores altogether. So that's why we took the standard base approach. Does anybody else want to add to that?
No,
Oh.
you got it.
So I guess I'll let Matthew Eddy, if he wants to just give us an overview of the work that he and we have done, and then we'll get right to bullet points
Sure.
and going through the,
Yeah, 'cause I think the most important thing to get out of tonight is really to go through the planning board comments,
mhm,
Yes.
one by one, and either explain why we did something that we did, or what we can do better in the draft to more closely align with the planning board's issues or concerns.
The planning board. Yep. Yep.
A quick review, we sat in our early meetings and discussed approaches to how to deal with the big box issue. We did conclude the comprehensive plan was, we thought, a precedent that had to, a process that had to go through before we could really address the zone change. We understood that there was attempts to do zone changes in the past, and we thought that that best lay with the comprehensive plan committee. So we fell back on the idea of strengthening the design review with additional performance standards. Most of the performance standards we pulled as used were back standards that are from other ordinances and that have held up in court relatively well. But we also were trying to fit some pieces, particularly the waiver issue and how we did that into the existing ordinance. So I saw some of the comments that it seemed a little cumbersome. We agree, we can make that better, that's great. But we also, in this process, knew that we were adding additional standards while at the same time wanted a waiver process that was able to reduce smaller scale projects whose impact is not perceived as being substantial, or that they would either have to fill out and respond to the application standards of section 10 or the standards outlined in 11 and 12. And the waiver process was really set up to be able to address that and potentially reduce the cost of going And then we went through a whole series of standards that the committee pressed me pretty hard to come up with examples and approaches. We did introduce the findings of fact process, because the ordinance really didn't speak to that at all. And we did very much, in polite disagreement with the planning board. I think we were all in agreement that the moratorium clearly allowed us to go in that direction. And that was a shift that we wanted to do and allow the comprehensive planning process to address the zone change. Ultimately, I think really, we don't disagree with that recommendation. We just think that it needs to follow the appropriate process through the comprehensive plan. And there are other things that I can add.
You've been to the select board and explained what, and they had no concerns?
No. We've done 2 or 3 reports of our progress and where we're going. And that item in particular we presented as to what the reason was.
I will say on December 2nd, this place was packed at the informational meeting, and the people that were most concerned about this moratorium and legislating it, they were very happy and, and they were happy with the approach we were taking.
We even had an additional row of chairs,
Yeah,
so there were.
yeah. Yeah, we were full. They're out in the hallway and everything.
So I guess I'd like to hear a little bit from the planning board or Frank, and then, really kind of go through the points and see what we can do to come up with a consensus that works.
Ms. Frank Terry, the code officer, and what I'd like to do is start off with the fact that we had one of the sharpest lawyers in the state of Maine who was so familiar with our ordinances that they should have been on a payroll as executing our ordinances. That's Sally Daggett. Sally Daggett took an approach of what should a ordinance be to prevent big boxes from coming into town. And the main area that she focused on is that 4,000 square feet of gross non-residential airport, and that's the number 4,000, that's subjective. And then she said you have to focus on 50 vehicle trips per week or 400 trips per day, that's subjective, but these are measured. All projects on a site with a slope of greater than 20 degrees, or a project requiring parking lot for 20 or more vehicles. These are solid measurements. There's no confusion. I'm going to jump through to what the planning board has discussed and brought up. And give me a second. What you're going to find as you discuss this, that the areas that the planning board has identified, there are subjective entries that do not answer one question. Tell me, on any one of these questions, how does that stop a big box? Now, some of the areas that the planning board has looked at, this is how we stop the big box. Now understand, I don't care if this room had 200 people in here. How many people in here understand and know the land use ordinances for commercial site plans for the town? I challenge the board that's looking at this, how well do you know the ordinance? The planning board has to live with this. These are the tools that they have to execute to do something for the town. I can't do anything to the citizens to this town unless I have an ordinance that's succinct that says I can do this. So these are areas that are ironclad. The numbers I'm gonna give are subjective, but these are solid things. Number one, if it's a major project of over 6,000 square feet, number subjective. Number two, if you have a setback requirement of at least 100 feet from the road, with visibility from the road being completely blocked, this is not something Big Box wants. They can't have it. Number three, any application that would generate more than 1,000 car trips per day would not be allowed. That's a solid. The next issue is require an economic impact study from these big box people. That means they have to get and review this and present it to us for approval. We require an environmental study, which no one does that to them. Require a public hearing to determine the public opinion. Now, why is that necessary? One of the things we did to this big box, we made them aware of the fact that this town did not want it. At the meeting that we had with the planning board, when we told them of the number of phosphorus control plans we needed for this their septic system, to prove that it was adequate, to prove that the impervious surfaces from the parking lot was going to be adequate. And then we also gave them the message while we were doing this, that we were looking to put a moratorium in place. Those are the things that stop the big boxes starting. Now, you're making a recommendation about our, stormwater control. The ordinance already addresses that. We had that too. We used that too with big box. So that's no change. Now, the other thing, you took sections 13 and you just highlighted the whole thing, which is what we already do. But it's put together in such a way, put yourself in the position of the ordinance, put yourself sitting back there, when the applicant's here, and tell yourself, how am I going to execute this to make anything to do to stop the big box? That's where the planning board's coming from at this particular point in time. That's why all the areas that you've recommended, except for 2 sentences, do not stop big box. You're recommending that we control the color of the walls, the material they use for wood or stone or anything else. That is so subjective that it can last for forever. Now, if that's the psyche you want to use to stop big box, that's not going to stop big box. It's totally subjective. So this is my opinion as the code officer. What we're looking for here, this is not meant to be a battleground. We're here to protect the town of Lincolnville. So we had to take our personalities out of this. No individual wants to accomplish one thing except do this to stop big box in the town. If you come up with something that says, okay, everything we said does not stop it, this will, then the planning board says, that's great. But give us something that works. Give us a tool that we can use. That's all I have to say.
I'm Dick Butler, Chairman of the Planning Board. I think Frank said it all exactly how we feel about it. We will be charged with enforcing the ordinance or interpreting the ordinance. And in our view, what we've seen written here is very, very confusing. A lot of it is very redundant. Give a couple of examples. Well, first off, I wanted to say about the stormwater. In the moratorium charter, there are 14 some references to stormwater and things that wanted to be adjusted. in the plan, there are only two sentences added to the stormwater existing ordinance. And I don't understand that. I mean, it seems to me that we're going after building design and facade appearance as opposed to the bread and butter and the nuts and bolts of the ordinance moratorium. I should have been more prepared, sorry. I had one other quick. We also felt that there were a couple of issues that we were not unhappy with the 2.1.1 being removed. That was not an issue. We felt that when we looked through this, in terms of site design, I don't know how much of a site design plan you can propose that would inhibit a big box operation. In other words, because you're saying that it has to be so much stone, so much glass, so much different colors, that's not going to inhibit a big box from building their operation. That doesn't mean anything. So it's to me, it's a lot of wasted space and a lot of wasted time. And the ordinance that we had was doing well. We were able to, as far as the last big box application, we made it very clear what had to be done, and I think that was very effective. I don't think that we are accomplishing keeping any big box store out of Lincolnville with what we've seen so far. And as Frank said, there's only two sentences that has to do with franchise appearance and franchise design, and that's about it. The rest of it is very subjective, and at one point, when I was looking through it, it felt like they're asking the planning board to become judges in an architectural design contest. And, you know, because everything is so subjective. I can have one opinion. Andy is a former architect. He'll have 20 opinions. And, you know, how do we get together on something like that? So we think another instance that I just remembered, regarding parking lots. There's an article in there to require an island for every 20 parking spaces. There's no direction. There's nothing. It doesn't say how big the island has to be. It doesn't say where it's placed. I could put a potted plant in the middle and say, that's an island. So all I'm suggesting is that we need very specific statements about what we're trying to accomplish so that the planning board can judge it and come up with a decision. Anything else?
Thank you, Jack.
Sure. Thank you.
One thing that I see right away is that we're not trying to dead stop the box stores. We're trying to make them fit into the community if they pass all the regulations. We were under the impression that this what was it, a dollar store, wouldn't have even passed what we have on the books right now. Eventually, they would have given up because we have a lot that we could have enforced right here. And therefore, we're looking to be able to integrate businesses, commercial operations into the community in the scope in which the community is right now. And I think Matt can speak to this, but we talked a lot about Freeport and about the building design that they have here. And I noticed he had a note in his changes that said he took some of that from the Freeport ordinance.
Yeah, in our discussions, we never proposed to keep a big box out. And we agreed with the planning board that the introduction of districts and then specifying where those districts might allow that use and where they might not be allowed is the right approach. However, we also think that that needed to go to the comprehensive plan process first. Actually, I don't want to
You want to sit up here, Matt?
yeah.
Yeah, that might be a lot better.
Just so I can spread out.
Yeah.
I didn't, usually there's not enough seats for me up here. So it was never our intent to utilize this process to block big lots. That we had concluded that given the way your ordinance is structured now, that that's not a possibility. I appreciate the 100-foot setback. I appreciate the 1,000-car trips per day, but what we got concerned about was some of the other uses that you already have in the community that would then create some condition of nonconformity. We talked about the auto parts place. We talked about the Viking lumber yard in particular, and some other pieces. So we were concerned about that. A dollar store in this region is probably not going to produce 1,000-car trips per day. You know, if I understand the production that they would do. The require of an economic impact study, while interesting and good information, is not a reason to be able to turn down any kind of project at any time. It is a way to define what's going to happen with the project. It's a way to define how many trips are going to happen with the project, but legally it is not a tool that can be used to turn down a project. It can allow you to ask, as a result of those impacts, ask for fees or improvements related to the project out on the site so that it reduces the impact on any kind of cost to the community, but it is not a tool that can be used to turn down a project. It is not legal to use it to make a final decision on whether you're going to approve or not approve the use.
Now you're saying final decision. This is put together by the town attorney, just that they use these cases. You're saying that these are not.
I'm saying that an economic impact study is not something that can be utilized in a decision to make.
I'm focusing specifically on this item.
I am too.
You're saying that the attorney said it's not legal.
I'm telling you, from my professional experience, that an economic impact study is not a tool that can be used to turn down a project. Yes.
Okay, well, that's contradictory to what we were told.
I understand that. Your site plan review process is your environmental study. You can consolidate that under one heading if you like, and you can reorganize the site plan review orders to do that. But you have most of that in there.
You're saying that the wording would not be used.
Excuse me?
You're saying that the wording would not be legal.
For environmental study? No, that's not what I said. I said an environmental study, it can be a requirement, it is a legal requirement, but it usually associates with all the other items that you're actually already reviewing for in your ordinance. We could consolidate what you have.
So that it could be.
I didn't say it couldn't.
You said it was legal.
I
No,
said that was the.
you're talking environmental and
Yes.
economic.
Economic, yes.
Yeah,
I think you're talking.
yeah, I had already moved on to environmental.
We did hear at the public meeting from someone who thought that there'd been a law passed fairly recently, 2017 or something, that said that economic studies couldn't be used in evaluating the project. They can be required and they can be reviewed.
Whoever said that, we're here,
But Sally was gone by then, wasn't she?
this was written by the sharpest lawyer you've ever seen.
Oh, I agree.
Okay, no, it did not change from the time she wrote this, till the time this person told you we have to go to legality.
I understand, I just thought maybe the timing was that that had occurred after Sally left.
Because the current person who has her job now agrees with the ordinance she put in the
Okay,
The moratorium.
moratorium.
Yeah, it's a good moratorium. Doesn't. Well,
I guess what we're gonna have to seek out is a legal opinion on the economic survey and study and see if it's actually can be written into the ordinance and if it's legal
Yeah,
to do so.
Let
We
me,
don't-
let me be clear. It can be legal to write an economic impact analysis in to learn what the impact of the project is. You can't turn down a project for the reasons of its economic impact. You can have the project make adjustments in the community, road systems, driveways, to meet what that economic impact analysis says, but you can't turn it down for that. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So I'd like to go through actually the rest of your review point by point, because I had a little trouble following and get some help on some of those points. Starting with page 7, 1.5.
I think we're using this.
Right, okay.
Are you using the minutes?
I'm
Yes.
using,
Yes, he's at the same.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay, the minutes.
that's what we're trying to go through the planning board minutes to try to understand, for example, remove page 6. And I just want to go through them because our goal is to try to make this better, to satisfy some of the interests that you have.
What is the date at the top of the front page of the document you're looking at?
October 29th.
29.
Yep.
And the draft I'm working out of is the,
That was the minutes from that planning board meeting workshop
The morning.
that they had in the morning.
and it says, activities requiring site plan review, and the first note is 1.1 through 1.6, we okay, remove page 6. And then it's 1.5, starting at number 3 through 6, which I simply can't find in my draft.
Page 6, you're talking?
But I'm not finding 1.5 that you referred to. Because then we go on to a new section.
Yeah.
So I was,
1.3.
yeah.
Section 9.
Is there
Yeah, that's,
a page number where you are right now? I found the October 29th. What page?
we're on the first page, on the first thing under section, maybe that's it, maybe it's, yeah. section 2, oh, maybe that's it, section 2?
Section 2. That's the way,
Well, that's why I had trouble trying to figure out with your notes what was the issue. Would it be, there's a, yeah, it's, yeah, remove page 6. We keep going to that, and we don't know what you're referring to, because there's no 1.5. Okay. But how about we just go through the ordinance? And because I had a real tough time figuring out what the comments were. I figured out some of them. Let's skip that one. Let's try page 7, guidance and determination.
I don't even have a page, I skipped from 6 to 8.
Yeah. Is this-
Section 7, procedures.
Yeah.
Is that what we?
No, this was in section 2.
Section 2, 7.
Yeah. And section 2 doesn't go to page 7.
Guidelines and determinations,
Yeah.
already covered in 7.2.2,
Yeah,
page 7.
you took the whole thing out because it was redundant, right?
Exactly.
I see what you're, okay, thank you. So, the goal of that was not necessarily to be redundant, but was to actually clarify what the pre-application was for and what the decision process would come out of that. And that the project is either, is or is not subject to site plan review, and that it will consider waivers as part of the application process. We introduced the pre-application piece to set up the process for waivers, to allow waivers to occur either in a minor review, only in a minor review, you could actually waive the submission requirements and any of the standard requirements if you decided that the project was of a scale and size enough that it didn't need to be done. And then for major reviews, that you can't waiver the submission requirements, but you could ask for waivers, much like Dollar Store did in their proposal, and putting together an underground drainage system. The pre-application process we introduced was to clarify so that you could permit waivers and make it clear at the pre-application process what waivers you were going to consider. To a point.
Not really suggested waivers.
Yeah.
That gives the planning board a chance to look at that, as a week ahead of time, to see if they do that waiver.
But in your ordinance, you don't really provide any direction on how to utilize that waiver process or what to tie it to.
If I have someone that says, I want to waiver because it doesn't pertain to me,
go through this thought process and to check that as they're thinking about the waiver, making sure they're looking at the zoning ordinance to decide whether that's appropriate or not. That's what that thought process is for.
They can get extremely complex. If someone says, this doesn't pertain to me, I don't have any toilets, so therefore I don't have any septic requirements. What do I need to go any deeper to satisfy the fact that that is a valid waiver?
I think it's more, as opposed to that, which would be an automatic, you'd have to figure out how to take care of your toilet. The waivers we're talking about is, do you need a waiver from landscaping buffer because your property is behind a tree line? Do you need?
Waiver pertaining to all the submission requirements that have to be satisfied before the planning board makes a decision.
Correct.
Whatever the limit of the requirements are, that any planning board member can take any waiver requested, make a determination if it's valid, using their own thought process. We're not going to dictate to them this is the thought process that they use to make sure that it's valid.
But you are gonna tie it back to the zoning ordinance. You are gonna tie it back to the zoning ordinance itself, right? It's not the planning board's free-thinking process. It's,
Why would I be looking at the zoning, not just looking at what is it pertaining to? Is it still in zoning, commercial, whatever it is?
this is site plan review. This is site plan review
This is a pre-application, you said.
for site plan review.
Pre-application is very high level. You only need 4 things presented to be able to say that the pre-application is looking for the next phase.
But if you're going to make a decision on whether you're going to grant waivers, then the applicant needs to know whether or not they're going to get waivers, because they need to know how much they're going to invest on their application. The idea is to address those waivers in that pre-application process so it's clear for both parties.
I think I think Frank is trying to say is that we do that already.
I understand that, but he's adding more to it for the decision-making process.
I'm trying to make the decision process more clear.
It's more complex, is what it does to the board.
The struggle we were trying to get to, and that's a fair statement, the struggle we were trying to get to is how do you defend a site plan review process that you need to have high-end for a complex project and then still be able to relax those standards for a low-impact, small-scale project.
Now you're asking the planning board to vote on the pre-application.
We're asking them to give guidance and determination. So, because the applicant needs to know.
Well, the planning board has to say, we agree with it, and so you're saying that they're going to be voting at the pre-application. The pre-application phase is really to say, the applicant says, this is what we're planning on doing, do you see any problem? And the board is, if they see something that's the scale is going to be a problem, they bring it up. They're not going through the minute details that you're leading into.
So no matter what happens, the applicant would then have to fill out a complete application because they would have had no guidance as to how to waive any requirements of the ordinance.
I've been doing this for 28 years.
I've been doing it for 40.
We've never had a problem with the applicant understanding the waiver process the way the planning board handles.
You never had a complex project in front of you, and you may have.
What was the big boss that we turned down?
No,
I don't want to play word games.
the truth
We're
is,
here to try to make it better, you're making it more complex for the planning board. That's what you're doing. You might think it's very intellectual to go through this process, right, and have everything under control. That makes it extremely difficult to be able to take any applicant and go through the planning board with this. That's what the planning board's not about. You're not supposed to be making it more complex for the board. You're supposed to make it so we can control big lots if necessary. You're controlling the board.
no, I'm not controlling the board. I'm giving the board guidance and ordinance that allows them to step through a process and tie it to the zone.
Accepted by the select board, then we have a new charge to the planning board the way we do business. You are trying to convince the select board, this is the answer. The answer is that the planning board gotta do a different job.
No, I'm asking to look at site plan review in a different way.
If we were just talking about waivers right now, I read the old section, the existing section, and I read the new section, and I was both evenly, confused. I'd have questions about either one from the CEO. I'd be putting questions, but it seemed like the waiver itself being granted during the pre-application, and you're saying you do that already, Frank. Saying that you give the waiver.
It's subjective. If the applicant wants to bring it up at that point in time, they can, and the board will entertain it. If they don't, then they decide go through the submissions, and if at that point in time, the applicant says, I'd like to put a waiver in this, the board entertains it.
And here we're saying that you have to present the waiver request at the pre-application meeting in order to have it, have a finding of fact so that you can make out the application knowing that you're getting the waiver.
Because the applicant does not know all the details as he's submitting an application.
And he'll run into more,
They do not
yeah,
know.
okay.
Okay, it's not fair to the applicant.
So would it be better if they could request waivers at both the pre-application and then when you ran into it during the site plan review process?
It's an offering to them. If you want to submit it in the beginning, that's fine, if there's anything you know of.
Mhm.
But if we're going through and bumps into it, that is addressed, there's a waiver being requested.
I see what you're saying, Frank. I see what you're saying. I can request a waiver, and then I can get a written or fact-finding determination on that. But later on in the process of site plan review, I may want to ask for another waiver, and under the new language, I can't.
Absolutely, and the board will vote on both cases.
Okay, so we'll take that, and so that's,
Take it for advisement.
yeah.
Yep. So the rest is the pre-application determination. Page 6, it repeats itself. Page 10. Did you folks have an issue with findings of fact?
The way it is now, or the one you're proposing? What page
We're on 10. I'm following your notes as best I can. It would suggest the last sentence in the first paragraph be removed. Page 10, A through H, the listing standards very confusing, the applicant cumbersome. And the intent was to, as a lot of good ordinances do, clarify what findings of fact were going to be made and tie those findings of fact to the actual ordinance. And that's what we were trying to do. And we were actually, to Frank's point, we've gone overboard by being very specific and referencing the standards that are in the ordinance to provide guidance to the planning board as to how to look at those.
This is, what you've done is added the directory lookup as to what the mean.
Yeah.
Why?
So that everybody, the applicant and the board are familiar with why they're going to make that findings of fact. It gives them a very specific reference of finding a fact as to how they're going to make their decision.
Well, why did you put it in the agenda? Because it's actually confusing.
Why would it need to be an addendum? It can't be.
in the ordinance.
That's a question.
You just increase the difficulty of going through what is required for submissions. And you, I mean, I'm not sitting there.
Findings,
If I've already gone through what the requirement is, submissions, satisfy it, now you want me to go back and read it again, this is what I'm talking about. This is why I made this decision. And this is why I said this is what I did.
well, the findings of fact for the planning board to make a decision, they provide guidance to the planning board.
It's sufficient for the board to put together when the whole package is in place.
That's correct.
And one way they go to make the finding of facts, they're not necessarily looking at the submission. They're looking at the finding of facts of what the plot plan is, and what are you proposing which is not part of the submission.
But you're supposed to be looking at the submission in terms of what's in your ordinance to make a decision on the findings of fact.
The submission requirement help tie some of the stuff together. But when you go through and you make the finding of fact to approve it, you're not gonna change what the submission is.
You're gonna make a decision as to whether or not, in your finding of fact, they've satisfied the ordinance requirements.
Absolutely.
So if they haven't submitted that information, you would turn them down. If they hadn't addressed that information.
If they don't satisfy the submission, they don't go any further. They come back when they've got the submission complete.
Okay, so going through this findings of fact with a checklist, knowing that all those information in would be a pretty easy process.
Again, you're increasing the necessity of what has to be considered in the bylaw.
Can I ask a question? I'm looking at the notes that we originally reviewed that were highlighted here. And the question that I have is, if my memory serves me correctly, we discussed all of this. And I have about a page and a half that all says not included, which in my remembrance is that we went through most of this and we decided we didn't like it for whatever reason.
The bottom line, what he's saying, is there's nothing to do with stopping big lots. All this is doing is taking and modifying the commercial site plan based on other towns, the way their site plans are set up. But this is not
It's addressing.
there to stop big lots. You're redesigning the commercial site plan and it makes it more difficult, but it doesn't accomplish what your mission was supposed to be.
And we concluded that you can address that without actually looking at districts. I mean, I'm gonna look to the group, because we spent a lot of time on that. We didn't, and we couldn't come to a 6,000 square foot number because we identified two buildings that were at 10,000 square feet. So we came back and we said, we need to either wait for the comprehensive planning process, go through to decide where big boxes might be permitted and not permitted, because it's almost impossible in any kind of ordinance to completely restrict anything unless you have districts. And then when you don't have districts, you have to allow everything, which is where you're at. You allow everything no matter where it is in the community.
We proved that with our ordinance the way it is, and we can't stop it. All we're trying to do is add to the ordinance to make additional positive steps that says this makes it more difficult to big lots, not make it more difficult to exercise the commercial side.
I don't know what to say to them at this point.
Well, I think for me, the section 12 really, in my understanding, made, in case they could go get the, in case they could cross every T and dot every I, now at least they have to build it into the community, and it's not like a Walmart or Walgreens and the giant parking lot, and the architecture is different from the town, and it's an eyesore.
I'm not sure you stopped the big blocks, they just went up the street because they were gonna wait and see if the opposition went away.
But conversely, we had,
That was not what we heard from the town people who advocated. They wanted to stop the bar from coming into Lincolnville.
And we've given you the explanation of why we did what we did.
And I'm merely saying, you're not addressing it, you're making it more difficult to put any ordinance through the town. You're making it more complex,
To go through site plan review.
okay, whether it's big or small.
And that's why we developed the pre-application process to allow for waivers to deal with any size and to relax those standards.
That doesn't stop you.
The goal isn't to stop big blocks. The goal is to have designs that fits.
You didn't talk to the citizens.
the attitude of the people that we had here the other night, the man was here who wrote the moratorium. We had an architect here, and we had another lawyer that was here.
Talk about the citizens, not the lawyers.
And then there was plenty of citizens here. But what part of Lincolnville? Lincolnville is already, it's already residential. What part of Lincolnville do you want to sacrifice the residential area to put a commercial? Because what you want to do is you want to put a commercial or an industrial zone in, and then you're just asking for it. You say, this is where the big box can go. And that's not my complete opinion, but that's what we heard from some people.
We know that they're not going to come to the zone board where you then say you have to do that. No, that's not going to happen. But what we do have, we have the ability to put some basic tools together to stop things if we want to.
Well, if you're talking about a growth zone with sewer,
I'm
with,
not talking about any zone.
well, if you redistrict the town, if you zone, you're gonna have to have a growth zone with,
If I have a if I take any residential zone, if they could satisfy the ordinance today, I can have light commercial activity within any residential zone.
yes, and I think that's what most of the people want. Rick McKittrick, is on your page. He thinks that the only way to control this is to have zones.
Now, Dagger thought so.
Yeah.
And Mark Fowler thinks so.
And we have all this stuff that, from our informational meeting, and we're gonna go all through this stuff, and we're gonna listen to you today, and we're going to listen to the people that were here the other night. But conversely, there was an opinion that if you have a growth zone, a commercial zone, then you're gonna get commercial in it. And then you're gonna be driving down the street, and it's gonna be commercial, 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 like a strip.
This approach, while more complicated, is very much geared at single district community. Because the assumption coming out of the committee is they weren't sure that they could even get districts set up, and that they needed to have some sort of oversight. When I look at your recommendations of things that would actually control setback requirements 100 feet with visibility from the road being completely blocked, and that's for everybody, if you put that in. And is that your intent for every commercial use or every doctor's office or every dentist?
If you have a commercial activity, the ordinance says you will have block the view from above. It's already in the ordinance. It's up to the planning board at the time when it's executed as to how much does that mean? It's subjective.
Right.
But the ordinance says it's there. Now, if you are going to have a big block come in, then the latitude is there for the planning board to say, you shall block it.
So, in the proposal that you were looking at, which obviously stopped, no, your proposal for the dollar store, that included front-end parking, no landscaping, an underground stormwater system. No, your plan, the plan that they submitted to you, and the waivers that they requested did. They did.
Waivers for the underground water and stuff.
Yeah, underground water treatment.
For
was under the
stormwater,
stormwater.
stormwater.
Yeah.
Stormwater.
And we had pointed out to them that it was not adequate, we wanted to have their professional opinion and design for us.
Okay, good.
The same thing with the septic system. And so on and so forth.
Which this ordinance does. My point is that what we're trying to do is to strengthen your site plan review ordinance so that you can deal with a difficult project without having districts. That's what we're trying to do.
And what the planning board is saying, the thing that says NI means it's not applicable to something big law.
And we agree. Because you can't stop the big box, and what you're proposing there is not gonna stop it either.
Well, why is there a page and a half of NI that we all have already reviewed, and now it's coming back again? And it seems to me.
Well, the conversation is supposed to be about going through each one of these and deciding.
We haven't met to discuss this since we got it.
We've only been invited one time.
You go, that was, we're working on this for 10 months, and nobody ever asked us in that 10 months.
That's fair.
And so that's part of
So
the.
consequently, if you're running 100% want to have full bore, and so here we're out, I'm telling Doddington Blakely, you've got to have steam on, and says, who the hell you guys better stop us and slow it down? Okay, so, I don't think we're going anyplace, because it's not like we're going to service. You'll have one orders in that you're trying to bring us to, and the planning board saying, we don't agree with the path that you're going, because it's not solving the problem that was delegated by the select board. You can convince the select board that you got the right answer, but the select board doesn't know anything about the ordinance. The only people that know about the ordinance is the people sitting here on the planning board. Even the people up there don't know the ordinances. You know different ordinances from different towns. So that puts you in the driver's seat, but then listening to you, you are the power.
Not power, I have experience.
Jeannie,
and
were you on the land use committee that wrote this ordinance, that accepted?
The site plan?
Yeah, site
I
plan?
think it was already here, but it's been
Yeah.
tweaked several times.
No, you're on the planning board.
And Earl's
Right,
on the
yeah,
planning
yeah.
board. I think it's fair to say we're not as familiar with it because we don't work with it as often, but to say we don't understand the ordinance, I think is, I think we do. I think that what I see is the difference in what you think our charge is and what we think our charge is. And what we think our charge is was really supported by the people, the public that came, many of whom were on the originating committee of the moratorium. They support the way we're going. They're the ones who wanted to stop it cold, no franchise. They understand now we can't say no franchise. And what we're trying to do, they also support mixed uses, commercial mixed in with residential, all over town. There's not a lot of support for districts because we believe that by having the design standards, that can stand in for as a control over what ends up being built.
You don't see the control being added on. So I'm going to say tonight, because I'm sitting around going to circles. You guys have an agenda you're going with. What you're saying, basically, you're going forward with what you have, and this planning board, you're going to be stuck with what you have.
Actually,
No.
no.
But we're here to hear you tonight, Frank. I
Yeah.
went through these and I matched them up, to this ordinance, and I agree with you on some stuff, okay?
But I don't
But-
hear him listening.
Oh, I am, and,
Yeah.
Listening, yeah.
but I'm also providing explanations as to why the committee did what they did.
Yes, and I keep saying, you're taking it to a lower granularity of involvement
That's the part that I don't think I agree with.
We have a different mission, I guess. That's what Jeannie just said. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, we are of the opinion that we can't stop it right now under the single zoning in town, the single zone.
May I ask where you got that legal position?
It's against the Constitution to stop a business from coming to
No,
town.
no, what lawyer told you that it was not about to do it? Did the town attorney say? Because it's our town attorney is the only attorney who is.
But we did,
Well,
I provided
We hired a
professional
professional. The
guidance.
select board hired this professional to advise us, so that's where we're getting most of our information, but not all of it.
And am I sitting here agreeing with everything you're saying?
No.
Everyone chair agreeing with everything you're saying? Not mine.
Oh, the biggest disagreement is, are we gonna rezone the town so we can dead stop them?
That's not gonna happen.
Okay.
That's like,
Then we have to determine whether or not we can do this in one zone to completely stop. You're not gonna have, where we list them, McDonald's, Burger King, Kentucky Fried Chicken, is there a list? No, then all you have is the standards. And we've got a lot right now, and we're just even making it tighter. I don't even like making it tighter. But if we do our diligence and enforce this moratorium in the legislation, then we have to make it tighter.
then let me ask a question. All the members have seen the areas that we don't agree on. So what is the outcome of that? What are you going to do? What was that we don't agree on?
We haven't discussed,
Well,
But we're gonna take it and see if we can tweak the ordinance so that it works.
So you get fired. So then we can leave, and you're gonna get together with what's been discussed and come up with a change if there's gonna be a change.
we want to understand why, and we can't get there ourselves.
We need to take it to this.
We can't figure out why you don't support this.
It's a very simple statement that we made over and over and over again. We do not see the impact on climate protection. We see an impact on the planning board to make it more difficult for the smallest commercial wildlife. That does not make sense. You're not solving the problem, you're creating a problem.
Well, I understand what you're saying, Frank, because I had the problem with having the standards apply to, small projects. Because then you gotta get a waiver for, you know, the facade, and you gotta get a waiver for melding into the neighborhood and stuff like that.
So what else can we say then? We've said it at least 10 times.
I think we dealt with small projects, though.
Yeah, and
They'll be
what
treated
I understand is,
differently.
yeah, they can all, the waivers can all happen right away at the pre-application meeting. And that's because I came up with an idea to have different standards for one project and another project, like you're thinking about with the 6,000 square foot buildings, but I guess it can't happen. That you can't put it in the plan, in the land use ordinance, the site plan, the commercial site plan review that way.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes,
It's your responsibility to call or a lawyer representation and ask them, did Sally tell us something that's illegal? And I tell them 100%. Instead of taking anyone else's word, I don't care if you said 100 years of experience. You don't make a legal decision unless the town attorney.
I think that's good advice. I would, actually,
maybe it's
Can-
time,
can
maybe
we
it's
do
a,
that?
why don't we just give that to the town attorney to review?
Wait to see what happens. Please do that. We've been waiting for that moment to happen.
Well, it
That's the
hasn't been
next,
ready.
this is the next stage. But we want your input, so this can,
I would make a request, whatever the board comes up with,
mm,
that you also coattail that with what the planning board is doing.
well, we'd like to think that we're gonna try to address some of the issues that the planning board.
Yeah, we're gonna review all the planning board.
we can't, no, we can't. But don't think that we're not listening and that we're not writing this stuff down, and that some of us agree with parts of what you said. And then after, then we give it to the town attorney. Maybe we shouldn't give it to him right now until we make, because we have input from the meeting the other night too that has to go into this.
Okay, that would be good. We'd like
But if they, we fully intended to send this to the town attorney. That's part of any legislative process.
Right.
We didn't, see, we don't have the invitation to sit there with a wood thing, wood taking. Because you are the Italian people.
Yeah,
My
correct.
reaction to where we are now, and it's not based on enough factual information to allow me to say very strongly that I believe in this, because it's too vague right now. My reaction is that I think we've gotten the cart in front of the horse a little bit here. As an architect and a planner, the way I would approach this in a very general overview is I would like to try to define what are the objectives without getting into a lot of the nitty-gritty about how is this zoning, how is that setback. I don't think we're there yet to all of the details that you have come up with. To make me comfortable in this discussion, I need to have a clearer idea of the bigger scope. What are we really trying to accomplish? I hear terms that I'm not familiar with, growth zone, stuff like that. That makes me a little uneasy because it means to me that there are other thoughts out there. Not that the other thoughts are right or wrong, but I don't feel that we have had a detailed enough discussion about what our objectives and goals are in a broader sense. And that's why I think that all of this, all of the NI on a page and a half, just as an example, is too early right now. Because I need to know what is the objective of this, okay? And all those folks that came here, you have an interpretation of what they were thinking. I'm sure there are other interpretations of what they were thinking as well. And I'm new here, okay? I've been here a little over a year and a half. And I'll tell you an interesting little, I have a lifelong friend who moved here independently. He happens to be a non-practicing attorney. He called me up and he said, Andy, I need you to come over to Lincolnville. There's something going on over here and I need your opinion. It was the dollar store, okay? And I'm not exactly sure if the moratorium had been voted on or not. And that's how I was introduced to what this is all about. So all I am saying is, my comfort level would be much higher if we spend more time talking about the broader goals and objectives here. Because once we have reached some type of an agreement, even if it's only 80% or 70%, then we can go to the details with more clarity. And that's very frustrating to me, and I just wanted to explain to you where my head is at this point.
Our focus is on the moratorium and what the moratorium says. It's not on the broader thing. That is the comprehensive plan committee. And that's what they're working on right now, and we're not gonna precede them in this legislation. So when they come in with what they have, then it will be rewritten again, I'm sure. Or that's when you'll get because they're working on stuff like growth zones and residential and stuff like that. But we're not gonna wait for them. We have a moratorium right now, and we have properties that, people would like to do things with their property and they're not able to do it. People would like to sell their property and they're not able to do it. And we have the moratorium that tells us what to do,
And that's what we're discussing are the components of the moratorium,
That's our charge, is that moratorium
Okay.
ordinance.
okay?
In terms like growth areas, I can understand if you are new to town, that was part of the previous or the current comprehensive plan. And within those growth areas were different standards that would have stopped dollar store where it wanted to go. But those growth areas were never formally adopted. So we have none, and we probably shouldn't even use the term, because there aren't.
Rick, you're the chair of the board.
I'm the vice chair. Yeah. I am tonight, yes.
What is your plan right now?
Well, at our next meeting, we haven't determined when it's gonna be yet. We're going to go over all the information that we got from the public hearing and all the information that we got from you folks tonight, and then we'll proceed from there.
Well, it's a public meeting, you're
Always
more
invited.
than welcome to come. Anytime.
You don't want to fly.
I mean,
But at the same time, we can't have two boards working on the same thing at the same time.
No, we're very anxious, we give you our, we
So,
don't have any more to do.
so can I ask, as I'm going through the points, under standards and criteria, section 11, landscaping around parking lots, you say it's very subjective, vague, and no benefit. Yeah, it's landscape around and within parking lot, shades, hot surface, and visually softens the hard surface. Parking areas must be designed to create a pedestrian-friendly environment. Must be at least one landscape island. Is there ways that we can improve that? Is there ways that we don't want to deal with landscaping in a parking lot?
Well, our opinion on it is just so subjective. How can we tell an applicant, we don't have any size determination, we don't have any, it says there must be at least one landscape island for every 20 spaces. Well, how big is the island? Where's the island, position in relationship to the spaces? No, I mean, all we're saying is this is kind of confusing. And my objective, or our objective should be, in my opinion, to come up with an ordinance that's very easy for us to explain to applicants and for us to be able to understand ourselves, so we don't have to become arbiters. We don't want, I mean, every person on the board may have a different idea of what the architecture should look like. And then we're really screwed.
No, fair enough.
How the planning board gonna say that you have to shade the hot surface? How are we gonna know that they shade the hot surface?
Landscape.
Well, we just want something that's
Yes,
very
I hear what you're saying.
and easy.
Yep.
And we think that this is overly complex, and we'd like to see it.
Can I ask, can we just really try to walk through this a little bit?
Sure.
And just so I can get, we can just keep this high-level comments,
Sure.
just to get a sense. In the stormwater piece, first highlighted paragraph is too restrictive because we required 100-year storm using natural features. The normal standard, I mean, you either design a standard for 25-year storm or 100-year storm. No, that's for any kind of stormwater planning, any kind of site design.
Well, let's assume that it is.
Thank you.
No, let's just assume that it is.
Yeah.
How do we tell that? What do they have to do? Where do they find
Bill, what they would do is develop a stormwater management plan. An engineer knows what that is. And the engineer is going to know what a 100-year storm design is. You don't say it anywhere, Frank. You don't say it
Yes, because they can sue you if you ask for something and you don't have it in your ordinance.
Does that stop any applicant forever?
It
No,
might.
it's not meant
Depending
to
on the
stop it,
design.
it's meant to make the project be more correctly engineered.
You see, that has nothing to do with what you call it. You're trying to improve our ordinance to be a better commercial site plan ordinance to get there. That's what you're doing.
What we're trying to do is to make sure that the site plan commercial pieces are designed to the standard that the community is satisfied with, yes. And they are higher standards.
Well, that's what we're taking exception to, is you're making our life much more difficult as well as we have to, without solving anything, without any problems like that come up.
If we're asking for a stormwater plan anyway already, and now we're asking for a 100-year storm plan, it's the same engineer that's gonna make the same plan.
If it covers so many acres, the DEP requires the storm plan, and they're the ones who decide that the storm plan is that.
And if it's under 3 acres, it's important for the town to take control of that site plan review and make sure that that stormwater management plan is designed correctly for the smaller site. That's what it's about.
Okay.
Yeah, the other one was, we added the clause on 26 for treatment measures for any pollutant. We put that in specifically because of the water bodies that you have, and the different systems that it would run into. And I got a sense that that wasn't acceptable.
Well, yes, it's kind of vague. I mean, system includes treatment measures that will provide pollutant. What does that mean? Provide pollutant removal and treatment?
It means that yeah, it means that the engineer is going to have to prove to you that they've got an adequate system that will keep pollutants from running off the site. And that if they have a lot of cars, that they actually have a treatment system that can be cleaned and maintained.
Is this stormwater or all or not?
Storm.
The way I read this, just as a, no, you know, just as a guy off the street, is that if you had a hog farm, if you were gonna contain all that stuff and you had some hog stuff in there, then you'd want it to go through, you know, some type of a treatment process to take the hog stuff out before the water ran off into the rest of the world.
Well, the plan that would be required would be to have containment on the site of the water. The riprap ponds, runoff, containment right on the site. That's what is expected of anyone, commercial or otherwise, is to be having stormwater law. Take the measurement of how many rains per, if you get an inch of rain for 1 hour, how much is it? How much would run off at the tank?
Yeah, but it also addresses what's in the water. In this,
No, keep going.
if you had a garage or whatever, you know, you would have a containment system, then perhaps the, you know, and the grease floats to the top of the containment tank and it doesn't get out.
Building design and impact standards, section 12, which is the thing, page 31, where it says hodgepodge needs to be deleted. So really what we're talking about is page 31. This is sort of the key changes and additions to the ordinance that are legally justified and are more difficult to do, but they're specific to trying to work with design as it relates to the properties that are around it, because we don't have districts. We're going to have mixed uses, and we're going to try to shape the design so it matches and mixes with the adjacent properties. The assumption is that it would be difficult to get districts. And that was the real thought process behind this. And this, we had a more complicated version, and we can show it to you. But what is it that you object to?
I didn't object to it, I just felt that there were some things that are very subjective that could be clarified a little bit better.
How can we do that?
Well, I don't know, it's not my job, it's my job, to try to make it where we can understand it, and go through it, and make it easy for us to make decisions. Scales and relationships of the building and the facade, scale height, blah, 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 you know, so that's all stuff I don't know how it's our job to determine if these kinds of things are being, handled, rhythm of spaces, the building on the streets, I mean, you know, it's all, it's all architectural stuff. And
It is.
It's not, yeah, but how do we handle something like that? How does the planning board intelligently make a decision based on all the stuff that we know nothing about?
In language that I've never heard before as an architect, the rhythm of the buildings on the street.
I mean,
That's what we objected to.
yeah,
It's like, it's just making.
so what would be the step back of the stuff that would work?
To say something in 10 words instead of 2 pages,
Okay.
that's all. And that's your job, not mine.
Right, no, but the reason that it's in the detail that it is because it's held up in court. And it, you know, it has survived years, and if you're not familiar with it, you know, that is a standard that's been around for a long time in the state of Maine, and it was established by Freeport and went to court. So that's why I use it, but we can thin it
I'm not
down.
arguing with you, sir, I'm just saying that it's very complicated for us.
It is, but it's part of the applicant's job to explain well enough to you guys how they meet this, that you can understand why they think they meet this, so.
How can somebody who's an expert explain something to the planning board, and they can be lying to the teeth, the planning board has no idea what you're talking about, say, oh, my fair is an expert.
Happens all the time. It happens all.
We're trying to eliminate that.
No, I look at a sentence like, window opening, the writing with shall create a visual rhythm that is consistent with its neighbors.
So they show you pictures,
Yeah, but what name?
well, that's
Adjacent to the property, in the area, in the neighborhood. I heard that one of the public comments was to define what we mean by neighborhood.
Yeah, I think that's important,
Yeah.
because I don't see any neighborhoods.
I agree, Dick. I think it should be, I think it's a 500-foot radius around whatever project that you're doing, that you have to inform your neighbors.
Yeah, I
And
understand
then
that.
maybe that's how we define what you're talking about here. And the language can be tightened up.
I understand that, but I'm also thinking that, if we're out in the rural area, there are no neighbors around.
the neighborhood's bigger.
Then the
What's
issue
the
is,
neighborhood?
then the issue
And you
is.
don't have to worry about the beach.
Exactly.
Well, on the other hand, okay, I understand.
It's to,
That's not the issue.
Nice song.
yeah, it's a light in fact, if there's nothing around it, then the flexibility for the development of that site is easier. It's when it's adjacent, and we've thought a lot about this with the different villages. How do you deal with the designs in the villages and capture what's laid out in the village in a building that's going to be introduced, or an existing building that's going to be rehabbed substantially?
What are we talking about building for the future? Because we don't have.
In your comprehensive plan, you have 3 villages that you're talking about.
We have the center and Duck Trap and the beach.
I'm sorry, I understand what you're saying, I understand being in the center,
Yep.
but I don't consider them villages like, you said a lot of this was based on Freeport, and then I heard a lot of it was based on Camden, for example, with Walpole. Well, we don't have anything like that.
Right, and if you did, this would address that proposal.
Yes, well, we don't.
If they determined in the comprehensive plan that you had the strip of Route 1 that has sewer capacity and, you know, wider roads, more traffic and so forth, that they're gonna have a growth zone there. And then you end up, you got a house, and then you've got, a commercial entity that wants to go here, and a house, and a commercial entity, you're gonna end up with a strip. But there's gonna be houses in between, so if you can force the commercial to, and this is just hypothetical, that's what we're talking about now, is hypothetical, then you wanna make the businesses or the commercial entities look like the houses. Or not to break, just eyesore. I mean, I know that's very subjective, even the word eyesore is subjective, but, that's what we're trying to do.
You've raised an issue with building materials and flat roofs. And the thought process here, because we talked about flat roofs, was to not allow flat roofs. Specifically because when you get into franchises, they will go for a flat roof and you will have a box. So we asked people to begin to think about roof lines and materials.
I would very briefly say that that's an area that we had some discussion, because historically, architecturally, especially in New England, flat roofs fulfill a certain purpose in the connection between a resident and a barn, or a resident and a garage. And so I would encourage, under certain circumstances, the use of flat roofs, because historically that's a very important link architecturally between buildings. And they're very small.
So you're saying that a percentage of the roof line could be flat, interspersed with other roof pitches?
Yes, I think that can be done very easily, architecturally.
Yeah, this was intended to apply to the entire building.
But that's a fair statement.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting,
And that would be in violation of the whole architectural heritage of the town. Yeah.
We have height restrictions in town too. I wouldn't be in favor, just saying no flat roofs for any reason.
that's what we said.
I know,
No, that's what we
The reason
said.
we did that is to eliminate the big box.
right,
Yeah,
yeah, but we do have some areas in town where you have height restriction in shoreline zone, setbacks and so forth. But,
sounds like an application for a waiver to me.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it says you can waiver the things in section 12.
Yep.
So that's what you can do.
So, going on to exterior lighting. We're on page 35.
Yeah.
And again, we're thinking worst case scenario here, and how you would design for worst case scenario. And, an engineer would be designing a lighting plan for you if you had that concern. And they would be demonstrating to you on that design where the light's gonna be and what the light is gonna look like.
I think Frank's thought on that is that, again, it doesn't really affect, it doesn't keep a big box out of it.
Okay.
Unless it's supposed to.
Yeah, okay.
And we also have something that Arlene dropped off about
Yeah, there are
Involve
new
lighting that-
lighting standards that involve, include LED lights or address the
I saw that
impacts
comment,
of that.
yeah.
I've got a copy of it.
So in the rest of that lighting, by the way, Frank has some notes here that the rest of that is really covered by the fact that it has to be downshore lighting. So in other words, lighting that is oriented upward. It doesn't make any sense to put that in, it just says it has to be downshore. Wrong on that? Surf light.
Where does it say that, Frank?
Page 36, right at the top. It's right after saying that,
Right, right. And that's not permitted.
no, I understand, but it's already not, because it can only head downshore at one.
Right, but wouldn't you want to be able to do the light design and tell if the height of that light was a particular part, whether or not it'd be going into somebody's property? Or how you would go through that? And then,
If the citizens complain about it, then the applicant will have to change it so that it doesn't show.
but if you provided this, he would be addressing, or she would be addressing that.
Downstairs lighting, and I'm going to job, and they have to improve the downstairs lighting.
I think the new rules address LED lights because that light, it isn't as easy to protect stray lighting. It's an odd term, but,
Vibrations and odors.
That was an interesting topic.
How do they measure it?
Vibrations, you can measure a vibration based on the production that they're gonna have. You ask them what they're gonna do. If they say you're not doing any vibrations, you don't have to worry about it. If they have a production process that does have a vibration, you ask them to assess it.
TV or noise?
Ambient quality is the way we've used it. So the ambient quality at the property line.
So there's a machine, a device next to it.
Yeah.
So we have to get that monitored to make sure they do it.
You could ask them to do the analysis and to have somebody else make sure that it meets those requirements. You don't have to spend the time to design it that way. Same with odors. I've actually seen an odor armor.
odometer.
Odor armor. I didn't, Frank, you said something here that I didn't understand.
Right.
Right at the end, the last, you know. What page? Actually, it's in your notes. You said DOT must be informed about parking, ingress, and egress for site plan.
Page 38.
And I'm, you know. 12.12, canopies and drive-through facilities. Add the word may before create. Inform applicants, DOT must be informed about parking, ingress, and egress. Yeah.
I think that might, I've actually run into that before. DOT.
On a Route 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, on a state
on
highway, you
Ferry
have to.
Road, yeah.
Yeah,
On state highways.
state highways, but not anywhere else.
Well, we have a lot of state roads in Lincolnville. A lot of our
173.
52, 173, 235, 131.
Yeah. Pretty much any road.
Yeah.
We used to have an access standard that addressed it, but we took it away because they're almost all state roads.
Yeah,
Yeah, in certain situations, the state won't allow you to have,
a driveway.
right,
an access.
or
Yeah.
wide, so wide, so that two cars can come in and two
Or-
cars can go out.
Circular.
Yeah, that's when they'll be concerned, is in a state road, but not in any of the side roads.
Yeah, but as I said, that most.
Most of them are
Lincolnville's
state
made up
roads,
of
okay.
state
Yeah,
roads.
I can see where that would be.
Okay, what is this? What do you have?
You look at 12, you know, it's okay, we can one word.
Yes. Yeah.
No,
Night,
he's
Frank.
just,
Now,
he's just talking about adding the word may,
Yeah, I think so.
create, so it is may create, right in there.
I don't know. As far as we're concerned, what I suggested, you said you're having another meeting,
Yes.
and you're gonna
Chew on this.
finalize and put something together.
I'm not gonna find it.
Well,
We have
We're
one
working on
now.
another draft.
Finalize the
Yeah.
wrong word, finalize the wrong word. You're gonna draft something
revise, yeah.
and revise what you've got, and taking some input from us, and understand where we're coming from, I think. and
Yeah.
Making things a little less complicated and a little easier for us to be able to make judgments on application. That's the main goal. I don't think there's any confrontation there, I think we're all on the same page.
I don't sense it.
Okay, please, we didn't want that.
Yeah.
But we do want to make it, maybe it's very selfish of us, want to make our job a little bit easier on the planning board. And that's basically what we're saying.
No, it's very important that we should know these things, and that the ordinance be crafted so it can be used by the planning board, because that's where it does go.
Yeah, I don't know that it can be easier, but it can be clearer
Well, maybe clearer and more.
and easier to use, but
What's the
the job, I don't think can,
And I do like the idea of, excuse me. I do like the idea of the checklist.
Yeah.
I think that makes it very easy.
That's part of the, I mean, we should have, I mean, part of that is that checklist is designed right along with this to make it easy for the planning board to make that process. But we'll work on the language.
So the instruction, it's kind of like an operator's manual for the planning board to go through the site plan reviews.
The checklist, yeah,
Yeah.
that's the idea.
this is something that I created, for the zoning board in Canada, I did the zoning board and planning board. And so it's like a process agenda. And I think this kind of thing, it gives you step by step how to get through this, and what it is that you have to do and find, you can have, yeah, because I really like to know what you think about that kind of.
We'll get some.
Thank you, Jean.
Thank you very much.
May I ask one last question? I'm at a complete loss as to what the timing is on where we go from here. And I'm just as interested in what happens.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Night.
coming.
When the moratorium is finalized, and all of the wording, what happens from that point on? Because that is a complete blank in my mind.
Yeah.
Obviously, there have to be a whole bunch of new steps that are gonna have to be taken from that point forward.
The moratorium process it's a 180-day period. You can extend that moratorium 180 days as long as you're making progress, as long as you want.
Have we done that once?
We've done it once.
Okay.
But in the same token, we want to get something in place so that we're not putting up a moratorium for any of the larger projects. And
We've only done it once.
Yes, we're going down.
Well, we voted on it and then we extended
Then you
it.
extended it.
yeah, we extended it once.
The extension was through the end of November, wasn't it? Because
No,
the first one
March.
was November 23rd, we had a 180-day extension. Of 2023.
I'm not sure, but my understanding is what we were trying to hit was the town meeting for the ordinance.
We wanted to get something in front of the voters at the town meeting.
Yeah, my point is that it seems like our extensions are over now.
I'm not sure.
No,
Yeah.
Well, you said you only had one extension,
We had the original 180 days.
which was November 23rd is the original date on the moratorium. November 23rd, 23. So that would bring you.
You might be right.
Two would bring you to November 23rd, 24. So we're out of the extension now.
I'll double check it.
Unless I'm missing something.
Actually.
You might be right, but I didn't see what the Board of Selectmen did when they did the last extension.
Okay.
So I'm not sure.
Well, I just thought it was going to help because
Yeah.
it's puzzling to me.
Yep. no, we'll double check that.
I think David's watching it for us.
Authority and ordinances. This was the original, like Dick said.
Okay.
Yes, like you said, November
Yes,
15th.
November 23rd, 2023.
Yeah.
And then if you
So
have an
we're-
extension after that.
So we've had two
360
extensions.
now.
We've had
We're
two
on-
extensions, I thought we just had the one.
Maybe we
I
have
thought it was
to.
one too.
For some reason, I think there's an extension in place, so let me double
There
check
is an
that.
extension in
We
place.
would be hounded if it wasn't.
Because that
Right,
was fairly
right.
recent,
have a meeting.
but maybe in our second.
I know David's on this stuff, and he knows we're
Oh,
shooting
that's
for that.
okay.
He has to do
Can
the
I
paperwork.
point
Yeah.
out that, in the minutes of the select board for November 12th this year, they voted to, have Dave Kinney give the LUC a charge to look at putting into the LUC, and the LUO, what we had suggested regarding shoreline zoning within the 100-foot line. And we had recommended that, based on the number of meetings, and we just had another one the other day, it was 4 minutes long, that all of that be handled by the CEO as opposed to us. So that's coming to you, I just want to make you aware of that.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
his comment, I thought it
That's
was,
pretty common in most communities.
Yeah,
It should be.
Yeah.
And around here it is, it's Northport, Stockton Springs, and I think Searsmont, all give the CEO that authority, and it makes sense for us.
unless it involves moving back.
Absolutely,
Yeah, if it's, they want to tear it down and expand it,
that's correct.
yeah, then that's a formula.
Right.
Just expansion. When it's black and white, then that makes sense.
Yeah, that one was actually a reduction of the footprint last year. So-
But they were tearing it down?
no.
No, they're just doing the
Redoing
screening portion.
Oh,
So anyway,
That's
thank you very much for
crazy.
your attention.
Hey, thank you.
No, thank-
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ladies and gents, it was a very civilized meeting, and I think you did very well, knowing some of my dumb questions.
So, Dick,
no,
that was,
no,
I think you had it.
that was gonna come to us as a charge, because I watched that meeting, and it looked like they wanted to keep it the way it was.
Well, that's interesting, because Dave Kinney sent me a letter saying that they declined it, but if you go, I just looked at the minutes from the meeting. and
Right.
the minutes in paragraph 8 say that they're making the charge to have Dave Kinney bring that to you. So I'm confused. Dave's on vacation, so I won't know till the
Good
23rd.
for-
That's why I mentioned it to you the other night.
I think we'll be dealing with it the first of the year.
Yeah, it's not a big deal, but I'm confused too.
Yeah,
But it's in the minutes.
Good night.
okay,
okay,
thank you.
Good
bye.
night, guys. Thank you very much.
We're still live.
We're
We're
live.
still live. Yes.
Yes,
Thank
well,
you.
does
So-
anybody have any new business besides what we had tonight? You know, anything that we want to bring up before we?
No, but I think it would be, to come back to what happened tonight, probably would be good to go back, review the moratorium,
Mhm.
just be very clear about what our goals is, because that was obviously the most contentious point tonight.
Yeah,
So to just bring ourselves back down and see
Yeah.
where we go from there. That's my only
Well,
suggestion.
I make a motion, we go over the moratorium at our next meeting and make that the priority, and then Matthew's gonna work on some changes to the planning board. Are you gonna do that first, or are you gonna wait for us?
I think I'd like to sit down with you
Okay,
whenever, after the first of the year, and go through these
Okay.
and help me decide what ones we should be staying with, what ones you want me to work on better language.
of their comment.
Yeah, so that we can try to get something that comes to a consensus with the planning board so that they can,
I think the other piece that would be helpful is the checklist.
yeah, okay.
And so I
yeah,
think
time to do that.
if we have the checklist that goes along with this,
That would
And I would-
eliminate some of that confusion.
I would love your,
yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
send it to me, yeah.
I call it a process agenda.
Yeah, no, I think
Yeah.
that would be a good way to organize it.
Yeah, it steps, it's,
It's what I've used every other place that I've ever been.
yeah,
so-
this one gives specific languages for findings of facts that are already facts. not for findings to be found.
Right.
So that is just that, that language is, you need to find that this is met, and you need to be specific. And that's
Right.
what those process menu, they're 7 and 8 pages long
But
for a
they,
review.
but they, you know, we can even make those a little easier.
Yes, yeah, they get, once they start using them, then they rely on them, and they make it through, and the reviews are, and successful, and,
Yeah. No, I think that's a big piece.
Is
Yeah.
that a copy that you can send to
yes, I
all
do.
of us?
I just remembered it at the last minute, that I
Yeah,
thought
Is that what you
maybe,
gave Dick?
yeah,
Did you give one to Dick?
yeah. I thought better give it to Dick.
yes.
Anything else?
Sorry.
I think,
That's
I
okay.
think to recap, we're gonna go over the public hearing that we had, the meeting with the planning board. We're gonna go through the moratorium and the checklist, and we're gonna work with, Matt on changing some of the language
Yeah.
according to what the planning board and the citizens want.
And it may take us more than one meeting.
I think,
So,
for me, it's listening to you and then another meeting coming back with drafts, which I'm gonna have a day to just sit and do that.
yeah,
And
I think, I wouldn't anticipate that we'd have any language, just trying to figure out how to get them to understand
what we're trying.
what we feel we
Well,
have to.
I think that the only way that is gonna get through is if we have the town attorney take a look and they clarify what we are able to do and what we're not able to do.
Yeah, and I'm sensitive to planning boards needing to feel comfortable even without the town attorney.
Right.
I'm pretty comfortable that everything in there is okay.
Yeah, I have no doubt of
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
but I'm just
Me
saying,
neither.
it seems that's a sticking point.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
it's an easy sticking point to deal with, so.
Right, so once we get a point where we've
Yeah.
got a draft,
Yeah.
talk to David, invite the town attorney to look at it and come and talk to us.
That would be wonderful. I'd like to meet him.
Because
Yeah.
I don't then, you know, what would have happened is we would have got done with this draft and would have gone to the town attorney. You know, that has to happen. and
It
then
has to.
Yeah.
so-
It's just not the time yet.
Right. It's just-
Yeah.
No, you
They're
don't take
expensive,
their
a lot more
time.
expensive than I am.
And Sally was good,
Oh,
Sounds,
so I've worked with Sally for years.
yeah,
she's excellent.
yeah,
She's very, very good attorney.
yeah.
So do we want to set a date for our next meeting?
I was thinking that there's really not a lot of us here tonight, and
Well, who's
I-
missing, Lois?
Andy, Lois,
And
I don't know the Jamie,
Jamie.
he may have to have moved out of town. I'm not sure if he found a place in Lincolnville or not.
I have no idea.
so probably wouldn't hurt for us to find out from him if we need to have a